Good morning and welcome to Seton Hall University. I am Susan Scherreik, Director of the Entrepreneurship Center.
Good morning, I'm Professor Manfred Minimair, Head of our university's Cybersecurity programs.
As key organizers of today's event, Manfred and I are delighted and honored that all of you can join us today for Connect, Collaborate, and Careers, an innovative virtual conference that brings together New Jersey's higher education community and our state's cybersecurity business leaders. Today's conference celebrates October as Cybersecurity Awareness Month. What we would like everyone to become aware of today is that cybersecurity is the fastest growing industry in the world. Cybersecurity professionals are on the front lines of keeping everything from bank accounts to top military secrets safe. But they can't do it without our help. So you'll learn today how New Jersey's colleges and universities are preparing students for careers in cybersecurity. We're also going to let you in on a big secret. This is the hottest job market on the planet. We are witnessing an explosion of highly paid jobs and new career paths in cybersecurity. Average salaries begin at more than $72,000 annually and can exceed $200,000 over time. Jobs are available to students and new graduates with backgrounds in a wide range of academic disciplines. In New Jersey alone, there are more than 12,000 cybersecurity positions available and more than 500,000 open nationwide.
The cybersecurity field is interdisciplinary and comprehensive. Many industries are looking for young talent to get into cybersecurity. The conference's 2 keynote addresses and 6 workshops are designed to provide students and new graduates with valuable networking opportunities. Students will learn about the different approaches into cybersecurity, including academic research opportunities, internships, educational initiatives, and many career choices, including computer science and information systems, business and management, diplomacy, finance, government, psychology, law, and modern languages. We'll also discuss diversity, inclusion, and equity, and the importance of attracting more women and minorities into this career path. It's going to be an exciting day. We especially thank our corporate sponsor, PSE&G, and our conference partners, UPitch New Jersey, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, and EDGE, the region's nonprofit technology partner.
We are extremely honored to kick off our conference with welcome remarks from Diana Gonzalez, the Interim Secretary of Higher Education for the State of New Jersey, and Seton Hall University Provost, Dr. Katya Passovini. Next, Dr. Joyce Stasser, Dean of the Stillman School of Business, will introduce our first keynote speaker, Sam Curry, Chief Security Officer for Cyber Reason. Sam's address will be followed by 6 workshop sessions. The complete workshop schedule is in the Whova app.
After the workshops, Dr. Peter Shoemaker, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, will introduce our afternoon keynote speaker, Mark Garrity, New Jersey Chief Information Security Officer and Director of the New Jersey Cybersecurity and Communications Integration Cell. Dr. Garrity's address will be followed by a half-hour lunch break. Then at 2 p.m. we begin our Day in the Life session, during which you'll hear from students and recent graduates about the cybersecurity internship and job experiences, along with a cybersecurity training expert from private industry. Thank you and enjoy the conference.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Seton Hall, for inviting me to this inaugural New Jersey Cybersecurity 2020 conference. I'm excited for our students to learn from representatives here today who will share more about the opportunities available in this fast-growing industry. I want to begin by acknowledging that the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic is challenging all sectors of our economy to develop innovative solutions to protect public health. You may be looking at New Jersey's unemployment rate and thinking there is no way I can get a job right now in the cybersecurity field. But as industries adopt virtual operating models, vulnerabilities are at an all-time high, and these highly paid in-demand jobs are critical to protect our state. Experts estimate that the cybersecurity industry will need another 4 million trained workers globally in the cybersecurity field in the coming years. And that 500,000 additional jobs in cybersecurity will be needed to fill this employment gap in the United States. Labor stats estimate that US job growth for information security sector will increase by nearly 1/3 in the next 10 years, compared to only 4% in other occupations. Online learning in particular leaves students, families, and teachers at risk of malicious cyber attacks. As public schools and universities transitioned to remote instruction last spring, we saw nationwide reports of Zoom bombing by cyber threat actors and internet trolls. Healthcare organizations and hospitals, which have provided essential services over the past few months, have been the hardest hit targets of ransomware attacks. These attacks have increased by 50% over the past 3 months, fueled by an increased reliance on digital software and data systems for remote work. Just last month, Universal Health Services, one of the largest health systems in the country, was the victim of a ransomware attack that caused a nationwide shutdown in its hospital computers and patient databases. To help prevent these attacks, the creative energy and digital skills of our talented students could help secure these online environments. During this unprecedented time, the world around us is presenting new opportunities to learn and connect with each other. Cybersecurity career paths are becoming increasingly vital to the state's long-term resiliency. This Cybersecurity Awareness Month, I challenge you to adjust your thinking about this global pandemic and embrace it as an opportunity. In closing, New Jersey always will be a place where opportunity meets innovation. As we continue restoring our innovation economy, our brilliant students are the critical gears we need to keep our engine moving. You are today's innovators, entrepreneurs, problem solvers. We cannot put New Jersey back on the road to prosperity without you. For that reason, the Murphy administration remains committed to student success now more than ever. Thank you, Seton Hall, for bringing students and industry leaders together today to learn from each other and showcase various career pathways available. And to our students, may your path forward be filled with health, happiness, and success. We are so excited to see what you will accomplish. Take care and stay safe, and please wear a mask. Thanks.
Good morning. I'm Katya Passovini, Provost and Executive Vice President at Seton University. It is my pleasure to welcome you today at this interesting conference, New Jersey Cybersecurity 2020, Connect, Collaborate, and Careers. I want to thank the organizers, our sponsors, but also you, the guests. I know for some of you is morning and some of you are connecting from all over the world. So thank you for being here with us today. Let me go to the next slide and ask a question. Why are we here today? Well, you heard it just a couple of minutes ago. Cybersecurity threats continue to escalate and we're not prepared enough. We need an adequate response, especially in developing those necessary skills to be able to counter very sophisticated attacks. So among the many questions that we are trying to answer today is, how do we engage, prepare, and also retain the next generation of professionals, the students that will be defending us in the future? Next slide. So I want to just give you a summary of some of the most important threats. The Brookings Institute published a study on the Vision for Homeland Security in year 2025, where they highlighted some of the biggest threats that the country and the world will face. And those vary from counter-terrorism, geopolitical risks, instability, border protection challenges, environmental change and water shortages. But you see highlighted in yellow, cybersecurity and technology changes. And these are really escalating for one reason. There is a wonderful phenomenon that we call democratization of technology. Technology is accessible to everybody and everyone. But we have different level of sophistication in the end user population that makes us more vulnerable to different types of attacks. In addition to this, of course, we're dealing with technologies. Some are new and some are old, and the older technology might have vulnerability that we're not ready to defend. Next slide. So many companies are doing many different types of studies. Cisco came up also with a report looking at what are the worries of many organizations when they deal with cybersecurity. And the biggest finding is really that one of the worries that we need more integration, simplification, and automation. Because if we look at the many entry points that a cyber attack could come from, it's really endless. And a lot of companies, I'm sure even the companies that you represent today, are generally dealing with a very large number of software vendors, and they're still disaggregated. And every new software that you need to consolidate and integrate in your system might represent vulnerabilities. So companies are worried about the use of mobile devices, data that is stored in the public cloud. Of course, the cloud infrastructure as a whole is beautiful if it's secure, but if not, it's really the single entry point to a lot of very significant data. And then, of course, user behavior, that remains one of the biggest issues that we have to deal with. Next slide. Today, you will see a lot of those numbers about threats, something that has been called advanced persistent threats. We are continuously under threats. But you will also discuss the need for new professionals. And especially, there is only one number that I want you to focus on this slide, that 84% on the right side. 84% of organizations believe that half or fewer of applicants for open security jobs are qualified. And that's one of the issues that we're trying to solve here. We need a very strong technical skill, as well as a very strong business and process skills, because cybersecurity, as our organizer mentioned at the beginning, it's really an interdisciplinary field. But fundamentally, it also needs a lot of technology skills. One thing is about processes, the other one is really understanding the code to be able to defend it better. So next slide. So what can we do? We need to involve talent from the very beginning. So today you'll hear from university students who have become professional, but we also need to start earlier to convince people, and maybe also female students, having a diverse workforce, to really get into this field from middle school to high schools, bring them on in a lot of the activities that we do. The NSF and the NSA, the National Science Foundation and National Security Agency, every year they sponsor a Gen Cyber Camp that really brings high school students to college campuses to learn about the basic of cybersecurity. If you represent organizations today or professional society, maybe you can think about membership for students that is free, so that you start engaging them very early. A lot of professional societies already do that. Of course, coding competitions, hackathons, research, you'll hear about research opportunities today, internships, and then, of course, local and regional conferences like the one that we're attending today. So it is a great honor for me to be here with you today, and I look forward to the conversations.
Good morning. My name is Joyce Stasser, and I have the privilege of serving as Dean of the Stillman School of Business here at Seton Hall University. Today, it's my great honor to introduce Sam Curry, Chief Security Officer at Cybereason, and a visiting fellow at the National Security Institute. Previously, Sam was the Chief Technology Officer and Chief Information Security Officer for Arbor Networks, and was Chief Security Officer and Senior Vice President of R&D at MicroStrategy. Additionally, he has held senior security roles at McAfee and CA. He spent 7 years at RSA, the security division of EMC, as Chief Technologist and Senior Vice President of Product. Sam also has over 20 patents in security from his time as security architect. He has been a leader in 2 successful startups and is a board member of the Cybersecurity Coalition, of SHH Communication, and of Sequitur Labs. Please join me in welcoming Sam Curry.
Thank you, Joyce, and thank you to everyone, Katia, Susan, Manfred, and Seton Hall. I'm very glad to be here. I'm going to share my presentation now, and we'll get right into it. So the inspiration for this presentation was another deck that I gave, another series of talks around what it's going to take for the next generation of CISO, period. And it amazed me how many chief information security officers, that's what the CISO acronym is, sometimes it's chief security officer, how many turned up for that presentation. And the reason was they didn't know the formula themselves. It wasn't about the next generation of CISO, it was about this generation of CISO. And so in the spirit of this conference and thinking about what the message should be, I realized it's very simple. You are the next generation of chief information security officer. And I don't mean it as a distant goal. I don't mean it as a beyond your grasp and think about the possible. I mean, it is attainable. I've been asked a number of times, how do I get to follow a similar career path to you? And I'm going to say that it's not like, you know, Babe Ruth pointing at the stands and then hitting the ball and it goes there. That's not very interesting. And I would say, don't do what I did. It was a different world. The CISO is probably the youngest in the C-suite, although we're now seeing chief officers around things like chief data officer and chief privacy officer. So new roles are emerging. But it's only about 20 years ago since Steve Katz became the first person who ever held that title. And I would say that it is evolving. And I hope in this presentation to convey a few things. First of all, we need you. We need you in many roles, and not just the classic cyber roles that people may be thinking. The need for business skills, as was mentioned earlier, the need for soft skills, or the label I prefer is power skills. The need for all disciplines is very real, and we can't go looking for unicorns. We're not looking for somebody who's an expert in all of it. What we're looking for is expertise that's brought to the cyber discipline, which requires one of two things. If you're on the technical path, it requires depth and curiosity and a certain attitude. But if you're not on that technical path, it requires basic cyber literacy and that you bring what you're deep at. And I'm a big believer in diversity. And I'm going to say this is not just a societally correct thing to do. It's not just standing on the right side of history and for justice, which it is. It's also very important to do the job right. Our constituents are people, and they come from all walks of life. Our enemies are people, and they come from all walks of life. And we have to understand them as well. So my hope today is that in hearing this presentation, you come to realize there's a place for you in cyber, there are jobs for you in cyber, and that you can reach for the highest ranks in cyber. And CISO is not the end goal, by the way. There are other great goals, and there are jobs beyond CISO. And hopefully we go through some of that today as well. So as was very, very nicely put, thank you, by the way, Joyce. My name is Sam Curry. Yeah, I'm the Chief Security Officer for Cyber Reason and a visiting fellow at the National Security Institute. I'm actually going to encourage you, connect with me on LinkedIn, reach out to me. I have a policy that if anybody is wants to pursue a career in cyber, if anybody wants to go down this path, that I'm going to help. So I will accept all requests. Just mention in it that you saw the keynote. No pressure to begin a dialogue, but realize the door is open. And that may sound strange because security people are supposed to be very jealous about context, but I don't have time for that. If anybody proves that they're connecting to me for reasons that are not right, I'll just block them. But what I want to hear is if I can help you, tell me. And the only reason that I won't is if I run out of time, if you all do it at once. And I hope you get that same welcome from everybody else in the security industry. And in your time, if and when you pursue careers in cyber, as I think it's one of the fundamental pillars of a connected world, I hope you pay that forward as well. So I want to emphasize something. The intimidation about the cyber arena is that it is complex. And I want to emphasize that it is complex, but no more so than any discipline, but it is approachable. And one of the things that I think helps me understand it and convey what the fundamental problem is that this is human versus human conflict. In other words, for all the attention we spend on things like malware or exploits or technology, you know, what are the tools we use in defense? That can often be the focus, but it can be distracting. We need to remember that it's men and women who are attacking us and that they are human beings. And there's a very important distinction that Harari made in a book called Sapiens between first order chaos and second order chaos systems. First order chaos systems are systems where nature is the enemy. And they are adaptive and they are changing. But I'll give you two examples. COVID-19 is a threat in the biological system, or the biology system, and hurricanes are a threat in the weather system, in meteorology. Both are first order chaos systems. Now, a second order chaos system is one where there's intelligent adaptation and where the opponent is a thinking person or system. At the moment, it's all people. The most incredible opponents we've ever faced are human beings, the most devious, the most adaptive, the most intelligent at how they choose their course. COVID-19 doesn't go into an airport and say, my host is now going through an airport, I should lower body temperature for 10 minutes. That doesn't happen, at least not yet. But on the cyber side, that is what happens. Threats are aware of a conflict and counter-conflict and counter-conflict environment. And I want you to keep that in mind, that if understanding human nature is the fundamental part of cyber. And it's also true, by the way, that our job is to serve humans. So this is a human domain. And I love that Manfred earlier listed a bunch of disciplines that are absolutely critical, because it's about understanding human nature more than anything else, and then the tools that we use. And cyber is just another domain for human conflict. So with that, I hope that makes it clear that we have need for things like psychology and linguistics and culture and soft skills to understand ourselves, to understand those we serve, and to understand the opponent. And diversity, in fact, becomes a competitive advantage in every sense. So I'm going to mention this. Logistics and strategy are absolutely critical. They say that amateurs talk tactics, professionals talk strategy, and or rather veterans talk strategy and professionals talk logistics. One of the biggest problems in achieving a chief information security officer or chief security officer position is that we come up through the ranks being the very best at what we do. We are truly experts in our discipline. We are the smartest security people in the room for the most part, but that's not what the job's about. In fact, you got to let that go to some extent. So when you get to that point, that knowledge becomes an intuitive and intrinsic part of who you are, but it will get out of date. Our primary job is to enable alignment of security groups with the company or with an organization, and logistical in nature. How do you solve the tough problem of organizing people? And these are soft skills. Things like leadership, things like emotional intelligence become radically important. So I'm going to emphasize logistics as my first point, and I think it's vital. So thinking of that, this is what I think are the biggest problems for CISOs, in spite of what vendors may say or what you might read online, what studies you will see about the technical challenges. The biggest problems in cyber, the number one is alignment to the business. And I'll be a little vulnerable. I'll share sometimes when I failed at that. Alignment to the business means that you're seen as a member of the business team. And I know one company has told CISOs after 2 or 3 years, you're going to have to give up the security part of your job for a little while to prove you're a business person. If you go to a CFO, a chief financial officer, and you say, so what does each of these executives do for you? What does a chief revenue officer, a salesperson do? Well, they bring you money. That's good. Money, everybody likes money. What does a chief marketing officer do? Well, they help the salesperson make money. They give them leads. They make sure they have a tailwind instead of a headwind from a brand perspective. What does a head of engineering do, or a CIO? Well, they provide the products and services or manufacturing that enable us to go get money. And when you ask a CFO, typically, what does a CSO do, a chief security officer, a chief information security officer? They say they buy toys. Business people. And that's the gap. It is that when we get there, we don't always do a great job. And in my case, in my second CISO gig, you can look on LinkedIn and see where that was. I turned up and I jumped on everything security at the C level. And for some reason, I was trying to prove how smart I was. I was following the same formula I'd had until I got to that point. And what I didn't realize was everyone at the table already knew I was the security guy. I had nothing to prove. What I had to prove was that I was a business person. And I didn't jump on everything else that way. What I should have done was let other people get involved in the security conversation so they had ownership. And I should have jumped on everything else to prove that I cared about the business. The other problem is very often security executives in general, not just the CISO, don't talk the language of the business. And they are perceived to be the nerd at the table. If you go back 15 years, this was the legacy of the CIO. there were articles written 15, 20 years ago about, is the CIO, Chief Information Officer, truly a C-level person? And the concern was that they were hobbyists. They were technologists first, that they cared about screwdrivers and racks. They cared about wiring more than they cared about the business. That was in a day when we still use the term brick and mortar. Today, businesses are almost indistinguishable, their physical side from their digital side. I say almost because you can still do it, but almost every company depends on information technology and being in a connected world for success, and it's vital to the business. That's not true with the CISO. That problem has now moved to the Chief Information Security Officer. And so this leads to a very unfortunate fact, which is that Chief Information Security Officers have an average lifespan, one number I saw, this is the worst I've seen, was 13 months. And it sort of bears true because what happens is you get promoted to the point where you're a Chief Information Security Officer, and there's a certain lack of self-awareness as to how you really got there. You know, how do you know who you are? Is the mythology that you tell about your own greatness in a position, is it true? And so you do well more than 13 months. You change jobs less than 13 months. Maybe you stumble a bit and eventually you last longer, but there's this long, short, short, long, short, short that happens to a lot of CISOs. Many of them burn out. You can find articles out there about drugs, about addictive behavior being higher, and that is directly tied to stress. And most of it isn't stress about the job. It's stress about how to succeed in holding that position. And so I'm hoping not just to tell you that you can be a CISO, but to give you a little bit of the tricks on how to develop between now and when you become one, such that this number goes up. And I have seen better numbers as high as 22 months, but still, that's a tremendous waste that our best men and women get to that point and say, I'm not doing this. And so my hope is that this will help you and give you a start. Go into the cyberspace. We want you. We need you. It's a great place to be. And if you approach it right, you can be a CISO and you can succeed and last much longer than this number. So who wants the job anyway, right? It sounds miserable from what I just said, but I think some of us realize that if you really want to understand a system, the best way to do it, and you want to help grow the system, is we in security, we like to take things apart. We like to understand how they work. We like to find the weaknesses. And I don't just mean technical, I mean those, but I also mean the business weaknesses. And we like to fix them. We like to know that effectively we're building a better system. And as we grow, we want to do that on a wider scale. In a strange way, we are among those who like to take accountability and responsibility and see them as challenges that make us better. There's an old analogy a boss of mine used to use. Some of you may have heard this. He said to me once, Sam, why are there brakes on a car? And the answer you want to give right away is, oh, so you can stop. But he said, no. The answer is so you can go fast. And that's why security exists. If we want to be part of governments, if we want to be part of agencies, if we want to be part of companies, if we want to be part of a startup, and we want that organization to do well and to be excellent, this has to be done. Because we are really fundamentally a connected and digital world now. COVID has taught us that lesson, that some of the most important jobs to make this whole house of cards stand up and be firm and strong and a platform for growth are security jobs. And I hope you feel that passion, because it is very attainable. And at some point, it's time to be the CISO. And I'll get a bit more in depth there, but it is not just a it's not just a go for the top rung on the ladder. It is that once you've built all this knowledge, these jobs are needed as well. And so this begs the question of how do you come up with language to talk with the business? And I'm going to show you my pyramid slides. If you focus on the left, most of the products and processes and functions within a security department are at the base of this pyramid. And if you look at the left pyramid, a lot of what we do, your antivirus, your firewalls, your basic intrusion detection systems, they're around for 10 to 15 years. Most of them are not at the cutting edge, but they're essential checkboxes. But that's where the lion's share of the spend in the department is. Eventually, though, you got to start getting things that are better at helping you stop that adaptive intelligent opponent, stop finding the human who's innovating in their labs, government labs, cybercrime labs, what have you, hacktivism. Unfortunately, that gets the smallest part of our spend at the top of this pyramid. And so one of the first conversations I had with my CFO, I said, hey, there's a job for the cyber department. Yes, to some extent, we have to worry about vulnerabilities and compliance. In other words, reducing the attack surface and doing so in a rapid way so that all the vulnerabilities that are known are as small as can be. But we'll never get everything. And yes, we have to do compliance. It's important. By the way, the reason for compliance is quite simply because otherwise companies wouldn't do the things that you're being asked to do. This is the bare minimum. So I said to him, my job in cyber, I got to do that stuff. But the real job, the stuff at the top of this pyramid, the hard stuff on the left, that's actually stopping the human beings, the men and women that are trying to get into this organization as soon as possible, as reproducibly as possible, as completely as possible. Make it a machine. And CFOs understand machines. My current CFO, Russ, he talks about how capital has two states. It exists either as a gold brick, not doing anything, or you invest it into a machine whose job is to make more capital. And so he thinks in terms of machines. He knows what the sales machine is supposed to do. He knows what the marketing machine is supposed to do. This gave me a language to talk to him about what cyber is supposed to do. He gets that he has to avoid fines at the bottom of the pyramid. He gets that we want to get the reference architecture right and reduce vulnerabilities. But he also knows we need bets at the top of the pyramid. And so I transitioned to the right. I said, help me on the finance side to take the commodities, the things that are available everywhere. There's no real cyber differentiation. They probably should be managed by IT, like let's say firewall rules or antivirus updates, and give me purchasing people, give me the finance people to help me do that, and help me move money up. I'll place some bets. But if the opponent is constantly adapting, why is the minority of my budget on the latest cutting edge technology? Help me reverse it. Now you never get to that desired state over on the right. But this is a business strategy that helps to build a bridge. And there are others out there. You will develop your own. One day you may look back at this and say, wow, hard to believe that was cutting edge thinking. But this is the missing language between the business and cyber. And I think it's crucially important. Those of you in cyber realize time to get some business skills, and we'll talk about that. But those of you not in cyber who are listening, realize we need your help. You don't want a CISO or a director or a manager or an analyst approaching the business suite with statistics about viruses or incursions or what's been found in the SIM or the SOC. You want them instead coming and talking the business language and being entrusted to do that as a function that serves whatever the language that is in common between the business and security is as it evolves. So I do want to talk a little bit about growing pains of the average security department. A lot of companies will try to characterize practitioners, those that do security, by vertical, which is useful to some extent. Are you healthcare? Are you energy? Are you manufacturing? Are you in the legal industry? Doesn't really matter. Those are useful to some degree, but some will try to do it based on size of company. Are you a small company? Are you a mid-sized company? Are you a large company? But I believe in looking at maturity. And there are some scales out there that are 3 stages, some are 5 stages. Find the scale that makes sense to you. I think in terms of 4 stages. The first stage is the companies that just have a checklist. There's maybe 1 or 2 people, or even government departments, 1 or 2 people that they're the security people, and they buy these things. You find this in municipalities, for instance. Hey, yeah, is it being taken care of? Sure, I did all the things I have to do. There's a checklist. Great. Usually that's not enough, and so regulations emerge that say you should be doing more than that. Here's some things you should do. You should have password policies. You should be checking access rights, those sorts of things. And so there's a scramble with a lot of spreadsheets to try to demonstrate that we're in fact doing the right things. But that's still the bare minimum. And at that point, the security department grows a little bit, get some people who can demonstrate compliance and show artifacts and those sorts of things. But the real growth in most companies comes when you enter an understanding of IT risk. The risk in the IT department is a form of risk, but it's still treated as a special risk. As in, we're IT, we're different from other forms of risk at the company. And a lot of CISOs will approach a board member or approach the president of a company and say, hey, I manage risk, I'm in security. And they're like, oh, that's great. We already talk risk, and there's no common risk language. That's what happens in stage 4, where we talk about business risk. In that phase, we're talking finance risk, legal risk, operational risk, IT security risk, all with a common language, all in the same risk registries. And that's when the department gets most mature. And sometimes it shrinks a little bit. That's when, in the third phase, you'll see these departments get huge, 500 or 600 people. Everything that is security related has to be done by them. In the business risk phase, it actually shrinks. And that's not a bad thing. It means that we can move collectively onto better jobs, that we're not doing every single function. Things like password resets or anti-spam or firewall rules shouldn't be done by experts. They can be done by IT people more efficiently. We have bigger fish to fry in chasing the opponent. And so that brings me to a distinction I want to make, which is, and you probably inferred this from my pyramid slide, I don't see IT security and cybersecurity as the same thing. They are not the same thing. IT security is that set of functions that are commoditized from a security perspective, they're differentiated on price, they should be operationalized and usable at scale. Cybersecurity is the function of actually finding and stopping bad guys, that machine of cyber. I use this, it resonates with my peers. I encourage you to noodle on that a little bit. And I'm using these terms like cybersecurity a little differently because it's become synonymous in the wider popular media with everything security, with information security. I think of information security as the umbrella over it all, and it breaks into important, but more manageable, more operational, and not really the center of attention, IT security, and then the actually stopping the attackers. And so let's talk a little bit, oops, I went the wrong way. Let's talk a little bit about where these things report. If you're going into this industry, what departments might you hit? Well, in a mature department, I've sort of shown every possibility. The CISO I've put in the center. Let's be clear, the CISO isn't really the center. The business is the center on the one hand, and the people doing the work are on the other hand. But nevertheless, in an org chart, people roll up to the CISO, and I'll say at the top, they could report into any number of places. I find the CIO is the most common, sometimes the CTO, sometimes the higher level chief security officer that rolls in things like, and even chief risk officer, that rolls in things like physical security as well and safety. But underneath them, these departments can exist in various combinations and sometimes confusingly. In a low maturity company, a 1 or a 2, if you're going for an interview, they might not have this breadth. Multiple people might be wearing multiple hats. In a 3, that's when you'll see this full spectrum. And when you get to a 4, you might again see some condensing of roles. But if you're navigating this and you go for an interview, it's very important to understand how mature is this company, and don't avoid the lesser mature companies. They need help and need you just as much as the larger and more structured ones do, the larger departments. And they can exist in structure even in relatively small companies. So have a look at this, realize that there are many different functions, and I'm happy to share this presentation with people afterwards. You're probably going to start somewhere below the CISO in this, but look at this on the left. There's a business analyst function, very common in banks and emerging. And I want to emphasize as well, security needs packaging. Security needs advocates, and security companies have the full role of functions, and there are over 2,000 of them out there. Our RSA conference every year is amazing how much more floor space they need to show those who are coming and showing the latest and greatest. It's a burgeoning industry. There's startups everywhere, so which means there's roles for lawyers, there's roles for business development people, there's roles for sales, there's roles for a G&A function. So if you're watching this and going, is cyber for me? Once you have basic literacy in it and you can gain some of that while doing the work, we need every role as well. But if you're looking to go and become a CISO, chances are at some point you're going to spend some time here and you will have to gain some expertise here. But then when you get to that higher level, your job is different. So the plan isn't what you think it is for the most part. It isn't about a hungry climb to the top up a ladder. And I say that because there's a great Harvard Business Review article on the best way to get ahead is in fact not to go to the top. Those who last longest have a different motion. And that is that they tend to go laterally. In other words, they go sideways. So I'm gonna say, look, I've said the biggest problem in security is alignment with others. So where are these security people? Well, it's bringing those people in. It's bringing you in. And it's one of the reasons why I embrace so strongly, even aggressively, the way we're gonna fill those 4 million jobs alluded to earlier. The way that we're going to do that is by not just going back to the same sources. And once you get in, the trick is don't go straight up, go sideways. That's how you're going to last longer. The Harvard Business Review actually talked about all C-level positions and said that those who do best when they get there do so because they do well because they went sideways first. And so I believe that the security people out there are in the non-traditional sources. I've mentioned diversity as a competitive advantage. But what I look for first and foremost, and I try to live this, is aptitude and attitude, even over skills. I put here and skills, but I care about what someone's work ethic is. I care that they aren't afraid of technology, because people can be phobic of it, but this is approachable. This is learnable. And I care that people lean in, and I can't teach attitude. I can't teach aptitude. Skills I can give someone, and we can put people on the right path for it. And I care about personality traits. I care about, do they work well with others? I also, worth mentioning, I believe neurodiversity is important. Some people don't intuitively have the right way to work people, but do they have the right attitude and the want to do so? I've had 2 employees who had autism, for instance, and they lent into trying to understand some of the soft skills and power skills. One of them became a VP, and one of them became a CISO, and one of the best CISOs that I know. Geographical constraints can be a problem, but COVID is teaching us the security people are everywhere, the job is everywhere, and the attackers are everywhere. So I'm going to say a lot less so these days. And a secret answer is, and I'm going to give a few secrets to success, is that we are all security people, really, and not kidding about that. That as we grow as a civilization, we're going to become more and more digital, which means security is a fundamental trait that's going to be needed across the board. I want to mention a little bit about soft skills and power skills. I think it's very important. I don't think they're soft. I like the term power skills better, but we have to understand how to manage people better. I think management skills need to be injected into the security mindset. I think we have to understand how what their individual needs are better, and training in this is important. So if you're on the cyber path already, if you came from CS or information security or electrical engineering or what have you, if you're on that path, spend some time picking up these skills. They aren't soft. That's why I like the term power. They're actually quite hard to do and to do well. But leadership is the ability to get people to act in alignment towards a common goal and scale and repeatedly and bigger scale. These are what power skills are about. Some of the team secrets to success is operational teams need clarity. They need to have a common goal. I'm going to talk a bit about trust in a moment, but especially for problem solving teams, you have to build trust, and you have to give people paths. Nobody is in a team, and it's not disloyal to think about them wanting to change teams. You should encourage that. The skill sets to move forward, things that you should be thinking about. Most of you probably have some beginning of skills or expertise in some of these areas. Some of it's obvious, understand security as deeply as you can. You don't have to be a coder, you don't have to be an engineer or a pen tester or a reverse engineer, but know a bit about it. And if you are, fantastic. Some of this is emerging. We need more academic research. We need more formal research. Data science applies and agile skills. One of my things that I'm going to talk about in a moment is I want more agile manifesto, DevOps kind of revolution to hit security. Some of it should be better known, more obvious, business skills, general skills, operational expertise, and that's a biggie, right? How do projects happen? We need people that are good project managers, even if they're not cyber people by any stretch in security. And we forget about people management, soft skills, and communication skills. Career pathing, I think, is critical. There are huge gaps in the staircase. You go from, in that org chart I showed earlier, the steps are big. And I think we can do more to help people build skills and be able to grab the next rung sooner. I also think it's really important that as you succeed, as you go from whatever degree you've done now or wherever you are, to remember to be role models and mentors. And I hate to say it, but sometimes you have to find a way to do the job before people recognize your job has changed, and that's painful. So I think we need to do more as an industry to make the career paths clearer than we have done, but there's 2 or 3 steps on these ladders that are very big jumps for people. We collectively have to help people make those jumps. So let's go into some secret sauces and then we'll wrap up. There's so much I could share. I wanted to emphasize lateral movement and lateral relationships, not in a cyber sense, not in a compromise sense, but everybody knows how to keep the boss happy. If you don't, you're going to lose your job. And your people who report to you, they're going to keep you happy. But nobody besides you has to work with you. Put some real time into socializing, into helping others for the sake of it. I have a rule that I never say no to anything. I'll say, yes, let me help you. And then here's how you do it in the future. or let me give you the right person immediately. There's no, hey, not my job. And I think one of the best piece of advice I got when I started out was let nothing go by your desk without having a piece of it. And there were two types of people in business. There's those who say yes and those who say no. You can be yes, but. And so if it's not your job, I would encourage you to do that rather than just an outright no. And I think it's generally good advice. There's a great book called The Trust Equation, although it's actually proportionality, that talks about, so how do you get trust? And I think leadership is super important. Trust is vital. It's a building block for everything else you're going to do. And I think in leadership, you have to empower it low. I think you have to, as a CISO, you are a storyteller. You have to make friends with other storytellers, especially friends in marketing. And in fact, bringing marketing people over is a smart move, and having a biz ops function in security departments is a smart move. You have to understand your culture, but here I'm going to focus on the trust most. There are 4 factors, according to that book, about trust. A gentleman named Brad Spencer told me about this, and then I found the book, The Trust Equation. They are credibility, reliability, intimacy, and self-interest, or alignment. Credibility and reliability. If you don't trust someone, you say, I don't trust him. You know, he doesn't know his stuff, or she's never there when I need her, right? But really, that's not true. In business, most people have experience and most people will be there. What's really wrong sometimes is intimacy, that you don't know each other. And that's hard to do in a COVID time. And self-interest. You don't actually have the same goals. In other words, you aren't pointing and you don't have clarity on the same thing. You think that other person wants a different outcome from you. And the best way to deal with that is, especially in a leadership function, call it out. Spell out when they're different and find a way to make them similar. The secret language, I think, for talking with the business, I'm going to emphasize 3 of these. All of these are important, but I'm going to emphasize revenue, cost, and risk, actually the last 3 on the slide. And that last one, most of all. CEOs, if you got into an elevator with the president of your company or organization, and they say, well, how's business? Don't say how many things you've stopped in the sock. You have to talk about one of these things. And if you talk revenue, you have their attention. If you talk cost, you have their attention. And if you talk risk, you have their attention. And the security industry has not really grokked this. Risk is the most important, I believe, for security, but you can actually use others as well. Secrets to working with your boss. I'm not going to belabor this. There's also a management maturity curve. The trick is to communicate a lot. And this may be harder during COVID or harder for some generations that use different forms of communication. I'd advise managers, likewise, get over it. You learn to use other forms of communication. But as you're entering the workforce, default to face-to-face when you can. If you can't, phone or Zoom, fine. After that, Slack or messaging. Email is a last resort, and because nobody wants to read a list or a wall of text. Become good at speaking truth to power at the right times, right? If it's burning to get out, fine. But usually there are times when you can do this and times when you probably shouldn't. And some common errors are worrying about not having answers or worrying about perceptions of competence. I say that specifically because in security, there's a lot to know when we get to the technical side of the house, and we're afraid to look like fools. Don't be. Don't be, because nobody expects everyone to know everything, and actually it's quite empowering to admit what you do or don't know. So getting more agile. I mentioned this earlier. The Agile revolution and DevOps took the world of IT and R&D by storm. And feel free to Google this. There's something called the Agile Manifesto that puts the user in the center. We are here to serve that purpose. Nobody buys computers to run security software. They buy it to do business. There are end users that we want to be productive, and we don't want to get in their way. One of my pet peeves is hearing, oh, I had a great security policy around passwords. The problem was the end user. That's a bad policy. Instead, we should have all of our policies be living documents. We should have all of our policies be things that revisit and look at the user in the center. So if you get into a security department, I highly recommend getting to know Agile, bringing those principles in bit by bit, and revolutionizing security, putting the user in the center. This will help everyone. And in particular, it will help most companies in a business sense, but also employees. And you're eventually going to have to talk to the board. And I will go to a conclusion. Ooh, lost the presentation mode here. You're eventually going to have to talk to the board. When you get there, the best piece of advice I had actually came from Jim Routh, who's now at Mass Mutual, used to be at Aetna. KPIs matter, right? Metrics matter. and you need to put a program in place or OKRs or objectives and key results. You know, you've got to do the work there. But the best piece of advice I heard was when you have to go and talk to the business, socialize before you get there. Nothing should be a surprise to the people you're presenting to. You're really going over material you've talked to them each individually about. And find the person who's technical or who is the expert in the room in your subject and take them out for a coffee and get them on board. Because as human beings in a room, when something comes up, we know who to look to, who's the specialized person in this room. And when you reach this point in a presentation, a key point, and ask, you want them all to look at that person and see them nodding. It's very simple. You are really a storyteller. So do the socializing, take that huge program, put it in an appendix, and use 2 or 3 slides that tell a story, especially graphically, or one that people can relate to. And that is really one of the biggest secrets to success, I find. I'm going to skip most of this. I'll just say you need not just lateral relationships internal, you need them externally too. So you should be mentoring people, recruiting, you should be getting involved in meetups, and you should be talking outside the security discipline. There are lots of things, alliances that are regional, birds of a feather, those sorts of things that you can do to build. And you will need this. You'll need this when you're between jobs. You'll need it when you're recruiting. You'll need it when you're looking for allies and to achieve results. So I'm going to say, look, knowledge is the key. It's another Sun Tzu quote. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you'll also suffer defeat. Here's the key. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. I believe you have to know yourself as much as we have to know the opponent, and that we lionize the adversary in cyber. We need to likewise spend a lot of time in self-introspection. We need to do more than cyber to succeed at cyber, and in the end, we need you. So I'm going to say, look, there's a job for you in cyber. You can thrive whether you're a technical expert or whether you're not. The basic competency is not that hard to attain, and we need you to be good at what you do. There is room for, I used to play rugby. We say there's a position on the rugby field for every body type. There's a position in cyber for every personality type, every gender, for every form of neurodiversity, for every skill set, and we need you. And it's not just a warm embrace. It's a desperate need that can help us all. And if we do this right, the digital world, just like in my car analogy, will be able to go very, very quickly. So I want to thank you. If you have any questions, by the way, please feel free to connect with me on Whova, on the app. I'm more than happy, or comments. If you took offense at anything I said, I'd love to hear about it, and I sincerely mean that. So send that feedback. And I think we're now going to go to workshops in the Whova app. So my thanks again to Seton Hall and to everyone who helped put this on, the people behind the scenes and the folks in the department that arranged this. And I hand it back to you guys. Thank you.